we are just outside the Cape Town City Hall, where President Cyril Ramaphosa will be delivering his 8th State of the Nation address, and that is going to be his first State of the Nation address under this government of national unity. Joining me now is the Deputy Minister of Transport, but he speaks in his capacity as the IFP's national spokesperson, but we'll come back to your official capacity in a moment. Firstly, as the IFP, what kind of advice have you been giving the President in the GNU in terms of what you expect from his SONA speech?
Well, the parameters have been defined already. We had the opening of Parliament address last year. We had the medium-term development plan and the priority areas of tackling poverty, of reducing the cost of living, fighting unemployment, and developing a capable and ethical state. And so our expectation, therefore, from the President is that departments now were supposed to go back and look at that, because the MTDP is a consolidation of the manifestos of the parties represented in the GNU. The key priority areas really for the IFP is to ensure that there is a direct focus on the issue of jobs and ensuring that we deal with the economic inequalities, growth and development for the country. Secondly, of course, dealing with an ethical state speaks about professionalizing the public service. It's about ensuring resources, skills and expertise within the areas wherein people particularly receive frontline services. Above and beyond, of course, is then to ensure that municipalities are actually functional to respond to the daily lived material conditions of the people. That's where service delivery happens. That's where the tire hits the tar. The IFP's outlook is that all development is local, and so what we're expecting is for national government, provincial government to cascade themselves far more strongly into the local government space, particularly on issues of water in communities that are struggling to that, and just cleaning up the towns. So for us, there has to be practical, tangible action. The President must put timelines to what departments would have actually presented to him, so that they are measurable, but also South Africans to know exactly how it is that things will be done.
I like the point you make. It's one thing to make promises, and it's one thing to actually test whether they are deliverables. I mean, previously he's flighted something like bullet trains as well as smart cities, but there's nothing tangible on the ground. How are you going to ensure that you hold him accountable to every promise that he makes in SONA?
The strength of the GNU will be internal checks and balances and ensuring that there is internal accountability from the government itself before we expect Parliament or the public to actually do that, which are all enablers for oversight. But we need to be able to have the honest and difficult conversations and not commit to things that we will be unable to commit to. The country is finding itself confronted with internal and external challenges if you look at what is actually happening in the DRC, Congo, Rwanda, and the very ignorant outlook which is coming from the United States, amongst others. So there has to be coherence in government speak, in government rhetoric, and the only way to do that is to therefore put in place plans that we can be able to check against operationalization. Secondly, the State of the Nation address commitments are dependent on a coherent budget, and so what will be happening in 2 weeks' time is in itself an important element of the commitments of the GNU, wherein the Minister of Finance must now be able to put money to what we are wanting to do. The only way, therefore, for us to be committed to our own commitments is to ensure that there's compliance with the PFMA, review the funding model for municipalities, and ensure, amongst others, that the quarterly reporting is not only just done to Parliament, but Cabinet has to review its own reporting mechanisms about how governments are actually performing. So our expectation is that there has to be a new way of doing things, because the acts of old have proven not to actually assist us, and so the new impetus of the GNU, amongst others, must really foster in a culture and entrench it of internal checks and balances, oversight and accountability amongst ourselves.
Lastly, in your capacity as the Deputy Minister of Transport, PRASA remains a struggling entity. What message are you going to send to people who rely solely on that mode of transport, particularly here in Cape Town, which is the backbone of the economy here? How are you going to fix that entity?
Well, I think one has the benefit of having dealt with the PRASA matters in my previous capacity as the SCOPA chair, and one is quite impressed at the progress that they've been making from that time and they're making now. 31 of the 40 priority lines have been reopened. Just this week, PRASA had an oversight on the central line itself to make sure that there's progress. The President will be making some announcements this evening about some of the targets that we need to meet about PRASA. But as a department, we are fundamentally and fully committed to ensuring that we realize the road to rail, not just for freight, but for the purposes of passenger travel, because we do need to decongest the roads. Decongesting the roads is also linked to us dealing with the issues around the fatalities on our roads as well, to reduce the volumes of traffic. So the commitment that we are making is that PRASA remains an apex priority, not just for the department, but for the state in itself. And I think that the next phase of reprioritizing issues around PRASA will work. So what we are committed to is to ensure that we reopen up the lines, we ensure that we put trains on the lines, because it's actually consistent with priority number 2 of the GNU, the reducing of the cost of living, because we also know that it is cheaper to travel on our trains. So I would want us to have a broader conversation of PRASA once the State of the Nation is done, and also above and beyond in the budget speech we'll be presenting further details around PRASA, but it's a work in progress in a constructive and positive way.
Thank you so much. We look forward to those announcements by the President tonight during his State of the Nation address. And that was Mkhuleko Hlengwa, the IFP's national spokesperson, as well as the Deputy Minister of Transport.